Matthew chapter 21, verses 12 to 17. Jesus cleanses the temple. And the word that we are going to feature is number 2413. It says temple, but we'll find out it's actually something else. Very interesting. But we will continue with the nouns in this section. As you can see, in this section, there are many words that are nouns. Everything in green is a noun. And along with many nouns in the orange, you'll see adjectives which modify the noun, and they have to agree in gender, that is masculine, feminine, neuter, number, if it's singular or plural, and the case, and here to theou would be in the genitive, so they have to agree with the articles which are adjectives. Now, so we have all of these green and orange structures which are nouns modified by articles which are actually an adjective. And it says in this first verse, in verse 12, Ke isilthan o Isus isto iron tu theou, ke exevalen pantas tus polontas, ke agorazontas en to iero. And Jesus entered into to ieron. Now, I've always thought that this was a noun. For some reason, I don't know why, because maybe the King James and learning the English to the King James for so many years, that Jesus entered into the temple. But this word is not the same as a temple. There's two different words. Here we have 24:13, and it's what? It's an adjective. It's not a noun. But an article can modify an adjective. The in iaron is an adjective, is really the dedicated place. So we see an adjective is also called a noun substantive, and it acts as a noun, which this is. It's an adjective acting as a noun. And the dedicated place is, or the consecrated place, is an adjective, because you say the consecrated building or the consecrated person. Consecrated is an adjective modifying something else. But when it has the article in front of it, like it has here, to ieron, it's the consecrated place, and thus the King James translators and others translated it into temple. But it's not, because the real word, the noun for temple, is neu, for number 3485. Ieros, number 2413, appears 83 times in the Bible, Apostolic Bible, but neu appears 113 times, and it's always temple. So if you're going through this and it's confusing because you see two different words for temple, that's why. I never caught it. And I've been translating for 25 years, and as I'm teaching it here, I'm making sure that everything I say that it's a noun, not something else. So here we have an adjective with an article, and then following it is a noun, God, to theou, and to is the article modifying a noun. So this is correct. So we have the article, the adjective, the article, the noun, and then the third, and he cast out all the ones selling. And selling is a verb, to sell. It's not an adjective. You wouldn't say the selling man, but if a word can contain to with in front of it, to sell, to buy, to run, to jump, to anything with to, then generally it's a verb. And so here we got poluntos is a verb to sell, but it's called a participle. And a participle is a adjectival verb. It's a verb, and we haven't went into verbs yet, but I'm just explaining to you what it is. It's a verb, but it's called a participle, which when it becomes a participle, it becomes also an adjective, and therefore it's declined. Now, what is declined? Well, declined is what we go through and we find out if it's a nominative, the genitive, the dative, or the accusative, and then masculine, feminine, neuter, and so forth with an adjective. It shows all these things. In here we see tous poluntos, so the tous is shows that it would be the ones would be the object, and so the tous poluntos thus is a participle, but it's a verb also because it's talking about to sell. An adjective isn't a verb. It's not, you don't to temple, and there, God is a noun. You wouldn't to God, but you would to sell. So this is really wonderful that we're seeing all three of these formations of words that are modified by articles. Here are the article to, and to, and tous. And you can look up in our analytical lexicon and go through all of this. So basically, I'm showing you at the beginning of this section of the nouns are in the green, but there are other words that look like nouns, but they're really not. Just because they have an article in front of them doesn't mean it's a noun. It can also be an adjective or a participle. And an adjective modifies by the gender, number, and case. So here we have the plural tous polontas of the ones selling, and it modifies it in gender. It would be the masculine, and the case, the accusative. And so we see now that this word temple is an adjective, not a noun, and it means a consecrated place. I might change them all in the next edition to make them towards an adjective. It's hard to decide what to do, or make it a noun substantive, which it is here, into the consecrated place, or the temple is what the King James people used. And I'm not exactly sure which way to go on it, but it's interesting to be able to point it out to you. I just found this out. And here I've been translating for 25 years. So Jesus basically said that he entered into the Eron, the consecrated place. Now in 2 Thessalonians 2:4, it says, the one being an adversary and elevating himself above all, being called God or object of worship, so as for him to sit in the temple or the consecrated place of God as God, exhibiting himself that he is God. And the man of sin it's talking about in 2 Thessalonians 4. Now the temple doesn't have to be the temple. It could be a consecrated place. And so that kind of changes the meaning there, because a consecrated place doesn't have to be the temple that's in Jerusalem. Now, seeing this without having the Greek be very difficult, because the English translated it one way, but if you see it in the Greek, then you see, well, it could be either way. And then in Joshua 6:8, it mentions the first place of this word, the consecrated thing, whatever it is. It says that the 7 priests having the 7 consecrated trumpets also went by. And then, so here we got the consecrated trumpets. It's used as an adjective. It's not a temple trumpet. It's consecrated trumpets, and it's using the word in the adjectival form. And then it says in 2 Chronicles 6:13, for Solomon made a brass platform and put it into the midst of the courtyard of the consecrated place. And temple is what I use, but again, that's what it is. It's not necessarily a temple. Ezekiel 27:6 says, from out of Bashan they made your oars, and they made your temples, your consecrated places, from out of ivory, houses of woods from the islands of the Chittim. So these little places they put these idols were consecrated places for the idols, not a temple as we know it. So that is not a good word to be used in Ezekiel 27:6, the word temple. In Zephaniah 1:14, it says, I will remove from out of this place the names of Baal and the names of the priests with the consecrated thing. So there in Zephaniah, it's used as an adjective, the consecrated things. And that's correct. Now going back to the New Testament, and then in Matthew 4:5, it says, then the devil takes him unto the holy city and stands him upon the border of the, and there is the said temple, but it's the consecrated place, the temple probably because it's in Jerusalem, the border of the consecrated place. Very interesting. So Jesus, it says, entered into the temple or the consecrated place of God, and he cast out all the ones buying or selling. Now we see here Jesus was in the Mount of Olives, and then he stayed in Bethphage, and then he goes into the Temple Mount, which is right here. Now the Temple Mount we have, here's Solomon's temple. Now this was destroyed and rebuilt by Ezra and Nehemiah. And then by the time of Jesus, Herod's temple was built. And here's a picture of Herod's temple, of what they think it looked like. And then we see a comparison. And here is a size comparison of Solomon's temple and Herod's temple. Now Jesus was at the time, of course, of Herod's temple. So this is what he's entering into this area. And he cast out all the ones selling and buying in the consecrated place, the temple. And the trapezos of the kolimvistron, and the tables of the money changers, katestripse, he overturned. We have the word trapeza, a trapeze, comes from this word, 5132, and it's a noun, accusative, plural, tas, trapezas. Here the alpha sigma is the same, it agrees. And so the tables, a trapeze, was a platform that was used as a trapeze in a circus. It's also called a place with a bank. So if you went to Greece and it said trapeza, and you knew the Greek a little bit, and you see trapeza, well, that's a bank, some bank in Greece. And so these were they money changers, changed the money from the profane Roman money to the temple money, and they cheated. It would be like if you wanted to buy a pigeon, and it would only cost you $1, but you went into the temple and you wanted to buy a pigeon there, and you had that Roman dollar, and you gave it to the money changer, you'd have to give him $2 to get the pigeon in the temple or in the holy place. You get cheated out of $1 because you could have bought the bird outside for $1. So the money changers, so the chairs, it says tone, polun tone of the ones selling. And so now that's another adjective. I'm sorry, that's a participle of the one selling, to sell. And so this one selling what? Tas peristeras, the doves, and making the money on them. And then there is another noun, accusatives, plural. And in verse 13 it continues, ke legi avtis, and he says to them, to the people doing that, gegrapte, it is written. And then you see this bracket, that means it's a quote from the Old Testament. From there to there, you go to the bottom and you'll find out it's from Isaiah 56:7. And it says, O ikos mu, ikos prosevkis, kli thisate, my house shall be called a house of prayer. And here we have o ikos, a noun with the adjective, but then it repeats it. It doesn't have my house, the house. It just have my house, one article of prayer, and prayer is a is a noun, but it doesn't have an article. So not every noun has an article. So if a noun, like this in green, doesn't have an article, then it would take an a or not anything. So therefore, here literally would be the house of mine. O ikos mu, the house of mine, a house, ikos, of prayer, prosevkis, and then genitive, which is of, belonging to, and klith shall be called. That's what it would be in the Greek. Of course, we follow the numbers here, shall be called a house of prayer. That's in, again, Isaiah 56:7, where it says, for my house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations. Isn't that interesting? In the Old Testament, it says for all nations. So it's not just for the Jews, as it would be in here in the New Testament with the Jewish rabbis. And then Jesus finishes and he says, Emis they afton episate spileon liston. But you made it a cave of robbers. And here there's no article, but those are nouns, a cave. So because there's no article, if it was, you made it the cave if it was an article, but there is no article, the. So it's a cave, and then of robbers, plural, genitive. So you made it a cave of robbers. In verse 14, it continues, Ke prosilthon afto holi, ke tifli into iero. I should have taken these out. That's not a noun. Ke etherapevson aftus, and came forward to him lame, and this is not a noun. You might think this would be a noun, but it's not. It's an adjective, a lame man, a lame person, and a tifli, a blind man or a blind person. They're not nouns. You might think it was, especially if there was an article in front, which there is not here. So these are adjectives. You can find all this out in the English Apostolic Bible Analytical Lexicon book, or you can download it. So they brought forth to him the lame and the blind in the holy place, the consecrated place. This shouldn't be green or orange because it's an adjective. So they brought the people right in there. He was healing up north. Down in Jerusalem now he's healing them. It says, Ke etherapevson aftus, and he cured them, and that word, we get therapeutics. Therapevson, and therapeutics cured them. So he now curing people right in front of the rabbis, the chief priests, the scribes, the Pharisees, all of them. They're in Jerusalem in the temple. He's coming right in the middle and doing these miracles. And in verse 15, it says, would you think that they would be jumping up in joy that all these people, the lame can walk and the blind could see? Wow, you'd think, well, everybody would be celebrating. But what does it say? Idontas they, I archiaris, ke I grammatis tathabmasia, epison, and the chief priests, now chief priest is a noun, and the scribes, another noun with the verb, the, beholding, the thabmasia. Now wonders is not a noun. See, now there's an article. Now I'm not sure if this is an adjective or a participle. I can't remember, thabmasia. So we could look it up and find out, which he did. To wonder, see, it could be a participle because it could take to wonder. The wonders which he did. So they're seeing these wonderfuls. Are they going to jump up and down? Ke tus paidas krazontas into iero. And the children, and children is a noun, crying out in the iero, the consecrated place. And they're watching this, these people. Ke legontas osana to io David, and saying, Hosanna to the son of David, showing that he is the Messiah. Children are crying this out, maybe the people. What? Iganak Tison, and they were indignant. Wow. They're indignant to Jesus healing all these people and the people proclaiming him as the Messiah. They're indignant. And these people, are they still around in Israel today, hearing the name of Jesus? Are they jumping up and down? We want Jesus in our lives. Jesus comes to deliver us from sin. Jesus has healed us. All these wonderful things. We want Jesus. Do the Jews today in Israel, are they lifting up Jesus? Or are they doing what it says here? They were indignant. I'll let you make the decision of what you think they are doing. And then in verse 16, Ke ipon and avto, and they said to him, Akuis ti uti legusin? Do you not hear what these say? In the indignant way. Do you not hear what these say? They're calling you the son of David and all these things. O they sus legi aftis. And Jesus says to them, Nay, which is yes in Greek, Uthepote anegnote oti, yet at no time did you read that in the Bible, of course. And now he is quoting Psalms 8, verse 3. Psalms 8, verse 3. From out of the mouths of infants and one's nursing, you ready praise because of your enemies, to depose an enemy and an avenger. So in the Old Testament, it was prophesying the indignant Jews that were coming against Jesus. But Jesus didn't bring that up. Just from out of the mouth of infants and one's nursing, you readied the noun praise. So now, the infants is also, I believe, it could be simple ones, simple people, not always babes, but here the ones nursing, you readied praise. In verse 17, Ke katalipon avtus, and leaving them, exilthen exo tis poleos is vithanian ke listi aki. And leaving them, he came forth outside the city, the polios is a noun, the city, into Bethanian, and he lodged there. And Bethany, we go to that map, and they have it, the village of Bethany down here, not too far from going back in to the temple. And as he's going back and forth, we see a time, it says, Jesus dries up the fig tree in the next section.